Is every instance of entertainment a moment of trauma acting itself out? There is a stereotype, and we can use Robin Williams as the extreme example there. We can use Will Smith as a very recent kind of extreme example. We can use Jim Carrey as just a beautifully extreme example. But there is a stereotype that kids who come from difficult backgrounds perhaps need to entertain those around them to make themselves acceptable. This video came from a little clip that Gabor Mate put up, and it was basically kind of saying this, that kids need two things. They need to be acceptable and they need to be authentic, but acceptability will always take priority, because acceptability, for you to be acceptable to your parents, means that you get clothed, watered, fed, sheltered. You get minded. If not, you die, and there is no point being authentic if you die at the age of whatever age, at a kid's like way too young. So we kind of suppress ourselves we conform to the environment around us, and this is exactly what happens. We learn from the adults around us. And then his argument is that as adults, we have to find our authentic selves and reintegrate it back, invite it back in, because we are now able to make ourselves acceptable to society writ large, because we can afford our own food, shelter, water, all the rest. Now, there's still wiggle room in that, as in we are social beings, we do need social interaction, so the acceptability never goes away fully. But to bring in that authentic version of ourselves, it just brought up the question. That little clip, I can't really link it or put it here, but I will leave the link in the description below. It just sat wrong with me, because I was like, does that mean that every instance of providing energy comes from trauma? If you divide your energy spheres into male and female, the female going with the flow, the water, the male being the kind of fire symbolism where you provide energy. Does that mean that every instance of providing energy, of instigating a topic of conversation or instigating an action amongst peers or just bringing an energy to a room, does that come from this urge to preemptively counter something that you're afraid of, something that was difficult in childhood? And the more I chewed on it, the more I realised that Gabor's own work kind of resolves the issue, to be honest. So I'm reading Gabor at the moment. I'll show you this. It is The Myth of Normal, and it's Trauma, Illness and Healing in a Toxic Culture. If that subheading or subtitle doesn't get you, I don't know what will. Very good book, worth reading. But in that, he goes through the integration of authenticity. And that's kind of what I want to bring today, is what is it to provide energy authentically? What is it that, I feel like being creative. I feel like going out for a walk. I feel like whatever else, because I'm really noticing there's a lot of floating around the place. It is either something that's trauma informed, meaning that I'm busy, get out of my way, I'm doing it, head down, and you're getting stuff done, but you're like a bull in a china store and everyone's getting out of the way. It's a harsh energy. Or you're a bit more authentic and a bit less on that kind of bullish side, and there's a bit of floating in between phases, as in we go to the gym and then I don't know what to do next. There's a lot of time. I'm feeling this myself. I'm noticing it in others, but I'm really, the reason I'm noticing it is because I'm feeling it when I'm moving around myself. And I've had to do a lot of this sort of work to kind of work around this and keep a work ethic that comes from an authentic place and doesn't come from that insecurity place of needing to for some extrinsic reason, strictly extrinsic reason. So what is authentic instigation of an action or of a topic or of just energy, of this kind of bringing people along with you, not because, oh, God forbid that they might turn on me and whatever could happen, but because you just want to lead them, because you are you are invigorated by something bigger, and you want to just carry along. You want to, that fills you with something that you want to share. It's probably the best way of saying it. And even the way I'm describing this probably gives you an idea of exactly where I'm going. I'm also reading this other book called Our Divine Double. Don't know if that glare is, if you can see it there. And that argues for all of, I was going to say ye secular folk, but I will say us secular folk who, we were all raised in a time where religion was very much at the lower end of its popularity and of its practice, especially. And it argues what a soul is in terms that I feel everyone can appreciate. It argues that the soul is the relationship between your current self and your future self. It is that arcing thing that stays constant between, because for you to transform, for you to transcend who you are at the moment, to get bigger, to get stronger, to become more, to mature, the current version of you, some part of it has to die, has to be let go of. And we are biological beings. We are primal beings. We do not want to let go. We do not want to sacrifice ourselves in that way. And this soul capacity is the thing that allows us to. It's the thing that calls us to, that draws us and says, like, you must. And you have that very tense battle that we all have between wanting to be and wanting to have it already, but also wanting to be more, because we recognize that we're mortal beings. A bit of humility. So anything that you can do to grease those wheels, to just loosen those kind of hinges and just let that process happen a bit easier is worth doing, in my opinion. And I've definitely found a couple of exercises, but I'm going to go through just one with you today that I've got from the Wolf Brothers that I do workshops with. So there's 3 lists that I want you to write out. Number 1, things you want to do in the future. I want you to aim this wherever you are, whatever stage you are in life, aim this about 20 or 30 years ahead of yourself. Things you want to do, experiences you want to have, and traits you want to embody, states of being you want to embody. This exercise is not for you to mark out your milestones. I want to have this slip of paper, this degree, this trophy, this amount of money, this car, this, and then I'll be happy. No, distinctly not that. This is about a state of being, a way of being that not for you to arrive at and to be happy, but that you want to pass through at some point in your life. That's it. Not a final destination, not an end goal. There is no panacea part of you that once you click it in gear, it is perfect and never needs to be revisited. If that is what you are looking for, stop. That's caused me so much pain. And I don't believe anyone's ever chased it and not felt the pain of trying to find that thing that just is what you can just set and forget. It doesn't happen. Life is this moving, fluctuating thing. So don't do that to yourself. Be kind. So recognize that this is a state of being that you want to just embody at some point in the future. For me personally, I want grandkids. I want to tell them stories and instill a bit of whatever wisdom I have at that stage, and for it to land with them in a way that they can understand and that might stick with them, which I'm very much interested in, the whole Greek mythology. I'm really getting into that again. It's fun, and it either way. And I also want to make it that those stories compete with screens and technology, because that's what I'm going to have to compete with. So I'm going to need to be a good storyteller to instill those, or to pass on those breadcrumbs that they may or may not take up, because they may or may not be relevant for them anymore. But to leave I want to leave grandkids behind, and I want to leave them something in an interpersonal fashion. And that's just a state. And I want to flesh out that picture then. I want to, like, what sort of friends am I going to have at that stage? What are we going to talk about? How am I going to provide? How am I going to tilt the scales in that direction at that stage? And just flesh it out, because the authentic providing of energy is not necessarily to be authentic in the way that we think of authenticity. We think of that being like autonomous, that we can do whatever we want, and that's it doesn't land right. John Vervaeke has flipped this around, and I feel like it lands so much better when you say it's full participation. That to be autonomous is full participation. It's when you feel fully engaged in the process. Because if you think about it, if you're like playing music and you just go, you just do what you want to do, like it won't necessarily sound great. But if you're fully participating in this music and you're getting this inspiration, and if someone asked you to do it again, perhaps you wouldn't even be able to do it the exact same way because it was just in the moment, you were in flow. That's happiness, that's joy, that's meaning. And that is authentically providing energy. And I think instead of chasing happiness, and definitely instead of chasing comfort, we should chase more moments of flow. It seems to be a much more fulfilling, much more growing and transcending sort of practice to have, or state to have in your life. And flow, to be at flow, means that you are at the edge of your capacity, meaning that you are fully engaged and you're also humble because you recognize that at any moment it could, and that also you're engaged in something that's of value. So again, that is getting you closer. So this is actually what happiness is. It is when the distance between, or this is a theory of what happiness is, I should say. When the distance between where you are and where you want to go is shortened. Okay? So this presumes a few things. One, that where you want to go, because there's a few places you want to go, it presumes that they're all in alignment and that they're all in the same direction, because perhaps you're going towards one but then away from another, and then that will cause sadness instead of happiness. So let's not try to oversimplify life. But so actually that's a really good point as well. So fleshing out where you want to go and really looking at the constellation of different places, different moments, different states, different ideas that you might have about the future, and the relationship you have with it. Like that's really important. But presuming that you're going roughly in the right direction, when you shorten the distance, that is happiness, and when you lengthen the distance, that is when you have sadness. And think about this. This doesn't mean you have to work at every moment of every day, because obviously we've felt happiness when we've been entertained, when we watch a movie or we have a good conversation or whatever else. And I don't mean the like fleeting happiness of, it ends on the happy music, ha 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 ha. That was a very fun movie and we just go off to the next thing that we're going doing. I mean the movies that hit, that strike, that make an impact, the conversations that hit something solid, and you're just like, oh, I need to revisit that. There's something there of value. And I'm delighted. I'm like, man, it's just after shifting it's after shifting something a little bit so that now I see it just a little bit differently, and that makes me, or helps me make sense of it a little bit differently, which can make all the difference. So in the last video, we went through that duck and rabbit, and that you can't see both at the same time. It's the exact same thing. Reality is very complex, and those little shifts that help us see stuff in just a different way, that help us move forward a different way, or help us understand at least our next step, they are so valuable. And that's why we keep chasing entertainment. That's dopamine, essentially. That is the chemical. But either way, before I just absolutely rant and rave for another half hour, I'm going to leave it there. The exercise for today is a list of things you want to do, experiences you want to have, and traits that you want to embody, states of being that you want to embody at some moment in your life. And then you can bounce between them. The things you want to do and the experiences you want to have. Again, I know they'll tend towards milestones. I get that, as in just by the nature of what's being asked there, they will tend towards milestones. Try not to focus on them. The essence of this is for all three of them to fully kind of develop an idea of a future self, so that you can start really building that relationship with your future self, so that you can really surrender into your soul, into that arcing thing that connects you with your future self and lets you transcend, lets you transform without, or that just greases the hinges of the pain of transformation, of becoming bigger, becoming better. So that is, I'm going to end it there. I hope you are having an amazing week. I hope you have an amazing week coming, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.